What's going on, everybody? It is Tuesday, it's November 7th, and you are watching and listening to the Daily AI Show Live. We've got almost everybody with us today. We've got Beth, we've got Andy, we've got Carl, we've got Aaron, and I'm Brian. The only person. We're missing two people. We're missing Aaron, we're missing Robert, who will both be back soon. So today...
We're missing Junmi. We have Aaron.
I said the wrong name. Sorry, we have Aaron. We're missing Junmi. I don't know why I did that. Thank you, Beth. Literally looked at him as I was saying it too. Yes, we're missing Junmi and Robert. Thank you. Okay, so today's kind of a fun day because, like we were just saying it before we went live, that if you're listening to this anywhere around the date about actual November 7th and not some date in the future, yesterday there was a huge OpenAI DevDay, and there was a lot announced. Well, we already had set up for today to talk about is your chatbot a know-it-all? And the funny thing about that is that we didn't know what was coming out on DevDay when we set the topic. So this is what we decided. Tomorrow on Wednesday, we already do our AI in the news. So we're going to leave the vast majority of what came out yesterday because there's just like we will be able to talk the entire show, no problem, because I think there was like 16 different things that were announced. But today, we'll just keep it on topic of like, is your chatbot a know-it-all? I think it is a great time to bring up one of the big announcements from yesterday, and then also talk about these other like Tim Ferriss type bots that people have created that are, based on, his 4-hour work week and and now you can just ask questions to the Tim Ferriss bot or the, insert name bot. There's so many of them that have been created out there. So let's just sort of kind of kick off from yesterday, and the specific announcement yesterday was this idea of being able to create what OpenAI is calling GPTs. And so essentially there'll be two different variations. There'll be almost like a marketplace of GPTs that have already been created by either they were already there when OpenAI announced this, or they're created by other people. And then of course the other side of that is you will be in fact be able to create a GPT. And so we don't actually have access to that as of this show. So it's hard for us to say exactly all that means. But this is something I just got off a call with a client right before this call. And he was saying like, hey, that was one of my big things. He's running his sales department for a company over in UK. And he was simply saying like, wow, if I could just build a chatbot that understood all this stuff that I needed to know about my personas and things like that, that would have been so helpful. And I was like, well, it sounds like we'll definitely be able to do that now inside ChatGPT. So that's a huge long intro there. I'd love to kick it over to one of you guys and kind of see where you guys want to take this. I know we talked about it a lot last night, Beth, Carl, and I. So where's the best place to kind of kick this off?
I'm going to jump in if you want, because I just started. I just signed a contract to do some work with a big ad agency in the US, and I'm going through probably a multi-week training program just to get up to speed on all their systems and their processes and their this, that, and the other. It's going to be a fire hydrant of knowledge at my face, and I'm probably going to drown from it, but I'm already thinking, okay, how can I take all this info and shove it into some kind of chatbot system that I can personally talk to just to say, hey, this is the situation. What do I do here? What would you suggest? That kind of stuff. So at the moment, I don't have any answers as to what would be suitable for that. I've got my fingers crossed that the new stuff that OpenAI introduced is going to solve that problem for me, but I can definitely see the value for any kind of business, not just the marketing side of it, of being able to put everything into a system so that you can pull information out, coaching, answer questions, the whole box and dice. So that's kind of a simple start off as far as I'm concerned.
And Carl, I was going to jump to you. Yeah, you can see we're jumping in on this one. No, I was going to jump to you only because, you have been creating chatbots for clients and things like that using other tools like Chatbase and other ones that you've mentioned before on the show. And I know we were talking last night, but do you want to talk I know you have thoughts too, but like, I'd be curious just to hear you talk about, where you think this OpenAI version fits into the global landscape of how businesses might be able to capitalize on a chatbot. If they're going to make a know-it-all chatbot for themselves, where does this fit in with these announcements?
There's a couple things. The first one is one of the most interesting parts whenever I'm talking with a client about a chatbot, and it actually depends on the client, is more about the privacy side too, right? It's like, oh, can this train on our data? Can this not? So a majority of chatbots, except for one, which is custom built, is all about non-private data that they can put on their website. They can upload their own set of data, and using it as I think majority of them use it as a data retrieval system, right? It's like, people want to know information. It's there in the stored data. They can ask it, sort of like ChatGPT trained on their data. And then the privacy aspect of this is, now you can create your a GPT inside, and you've got guarantees from OpenAI. But the question is here, is it only usable for people who use ChatGPT? Can you embed this onto a website? Can you send a link to somebody else? Or is it something like you share your conversation, but if you have 4 and the person doesn't have plus, can they continue the conversation? I feel like the third, you could, if you've built your tool very basic, where, you just upload files and answers question on it. I think you're a little bit of trouble. But companies like Chatbase, and combined with the announcements today, in addition to the APIs to Vision, to the APIs of, what was it, DALL-E?
DALL-E, yeah.
If you think about, because I have a couple real estate clients, imagine now, instead of just asking it questions, people could upload, I don't know, images, files, and then ask the bot questions against this, like, hey, I want a house that looks like this, or I want a room that looks like this, and then it would analyze the image and then go find a home based on that.
Wow.
Think about the interactions now you can connect. If there is the voice, did they say anything about the voice capability? I didn't think so.
I don't remember.
Yes.
Well, they did. They demonstrated text to speech, in an interaction with a GPT.
It's
but
accessible.
not as an API. Is that
it is accessible by API.
Okay.
Well, really?
And you have those 6 that are part of GPT voice. Those are parameters that you could select. So which voice you want.
And now, in addition to being able to just respond through text, you can now respond through images. So one thing we could think about is, let's say they wanted hey, could you show me a renovation or design or something, or like a floor plan based on these specifications. I can see it. So one of the hardest things from a real estate chatbot, where a lot of people were asking, hey, can you show me images? And some chatbots can, but now this takes it even further, because it can actually, if you do it correctly, and I don't think it's there right now, but I can imagine in about a couple months, can you give me a floor plan? Or can you give me a renovation design, whatever, it can draw
right.
it. So
if you combine those abilities, so I went and played last night with make automation. I'm still fairly new in the make automation, but I like to get my hands dirty. So I went and played with just a really simple Google Sheets integration with an image creator, which was DALL-E, and then an output. It won't put the image in the GPT Sheets because it's too big for like GPT. Google Sheets rejects it, but it gives you a URL that gives you that image. So imagine that you have the ability to have a form where you're describing what you want. That goes into something, doesn't have to be GPT Sheets. It's just or Google Sheets. It's just what I used. Yeah, we need some other letters other than G. But then you take that image that got created, and now you engage Google Vision, GPT Vision with it, and say, like, can you get me 80% of this? Show me the
Mhm.
homes within this mile radius that gives me 80% of this, right? Or whatever that kind of thing. Like, that starts to be really exciting.
So at one point when you said Google Vision, here's the funny thing out of all of this. And Google, this is where I just like, I'm scratching my head. Did you know that I think most of the stuff that you can do that OpenAI announced yesterday, you can kind of do it with Vertex. You go in there and actually their Gen A app builder, you can actually create using their I think I can't remember what the vision, Vertex Vision. Like all these pieces are like kind of connected, and if you know how to build it correctly, even
Right.
building your own bots, anyone right now can go into Vertex and build their own bots. Is it going to be good? I don't know. And the bot builder is very difficult to work through, but literally you can do this. That's the funny thing out of all of this. It was like, if you just go to Vertex, you're like, you can, because I know the Google rep gonna be like, you can do all of this. What's so new? And I was like, yeah, but if it's not new for you, like, what have you been doing? Like, where's your
Right.
purpose, right? Like, where,
Yeah.
like, yeah. So that was the funny thing out of all of this, like vision, everything's like, yeah, it's there.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's like, Apple very rarely comes out with
Yes,
a brand
exactly.
new idea,
Yes,
but they do
They just
really
make
good
it
job
better.
of packaging it. Yeah, they package it really well, and have a really good user experience. But I mean, 9 times out of 10, whatever the new Google feature has existed on an Android for months to years
Yeah.
before
I'm a
Apple got
Samsung.
around to
I
it.
have all this. I've had it for 2 years. Why is it new? And
Yeah.
Maybe
everybody's
they need to hire Apple to do their product promos.
Yeah.
I
So-
think Apple, yeah. No, you're right.
No, I just wanted to bring it back to Carl really quick on because I want for our audience, I want to kind of hear, I want you to just sort of explain, if you will. You were saying like, hey, I think if I understand you right, the GPT stuff that came out yesterday, there's definitely some really good ideas there. I mean, being able to build an internal GPT, aka bot, great, but we don't know just yet. Like, can you go deploy that anywhere? Can you embed it? All these kind of things. So maybe a great tool for internally using ChatGPT, but that's about where that ends, is when you're inside ChatGPT. Then we had the Playground Assistant, which to me at this point, again, we're 24 hours or less into this at the time of this recording, is that to me looks like that could be a great solution for, I want a bigger version of custom instructions. And so if I want to run the GPT 4 model turbo, and I want to have the 300 pages of ingest and all this stuff, I can really build myself what I would assume would be more of a single, like you're the one using it, internal bot, where you could then say, look, you have all the background information. In fact, the first thing I did last night was start uploading transcripts from this show in order to create an internal bot of all the transcripts of the now 7. I think this is show number 67, I think. 67, 66 different shows. And so I'm starting to bring in all the transcripts and get them in one place so that we can try that on that bot. Okay, so that's maybe that use case. But what I wanted to get to, Carl, is you're also saying like, hey, we have these other tools like Chatbase and other ones that have been around for a long time. And if I understand you right, you're saying, hey, what I think might be really interesting is now with these new API abilities, in other words, what OpenAI is saying you can access through their API could make these tools like Chatbase very, very powerful. And that still may be the right way to go, because now you're going to have these API access to like Vision and Voice and Dolly. Do I have that right?
Yes, because if you look at just on what the GPTs and AI assistants allow you to do, very like from a chatbot, custom chatbot side, it's kind of basics, like upload file, get your instructions, here it is. And sure, you can add to it. But things like Chatbase, Retune, voice, bot press, voice flow, like those kind of things, they allow you to do a little bit more. Like one of my favorite, I think the favorite feature is when somebody asks a question and you get a response. If you don't like that response, you can refine that response it's one of the best features they have there. They have Q&A. So it isn't just ask questions against the data. It's like, oh, here's a specific question and answers, because as humans, we're unpredictable. We can ask the same question 100 different ways. You can train it on that specific question, right? So if you get that question again, it's there. I think a bot press or a voice flow also allows you to take the concept of the logic flow, if then, and apply it in addition to the AI, like AI conversations. So you can have like kind of the old school, logic bots. Yes, if I answer this question, it takes me to this logic field. If you take this question, this logic flow. But they can combine it with AI. So now they can take that even further. So I'm looking at these bots, they can go even more. They take the vision API, like all these, they can expand it, where I don't think the GPTs are designed to do what they do on a grander scale. Yeah, there's like it. I know there's a lot of excitement, but we also saw a lot of excitement with plugins.
Yeah.
We would have, if we were doing this show back then, we would have been like, oh my gosh, plugins the greatest thing. Well, tell us what happened to plugins now.
Yeah.
Like besides the two that you use, where is plug? And remember, plugins is the new app store. Exactly the same. You can hear the exact same wording. It's the new app store. It'll revolutionize everything. Every single AI creator out there is just going ham on how this will change the world. But I was like, well, it only is good as if people can build good stuff. And remember, the only people who have access to GPT would be Plus users and perhaps enterprise users. Is what kind of, so not free. So not
right.
They can't build this. So how is that going to work?
It's also a little bit of a cautionary tale. Like we in the AI exchange community had some interactions with some people who built plugins, and they were like regular people at a hackathon, right? And then they had this thing, and that created costs for them that they did not have a business model to like cover. I mean, they were a tech, and so they had some money to be able to do that. But in the language that OpenAI used yesterday, it sounded pretty similar. Like, and if you make one that's really successful, we might share revenue with you.
Yeah, might.
That's not a business model.
Yeah.
I mean, that's their business model.
And we don't know what the store looks like, who is available to, how much are you going to charge? Is it, like, I don't feel that's kind of stuff. Like, we actually got a couple questions on if we want to answer a couple of them.
Yeah, I was going to hope to pull those up. Yeah, let's pull up Greg's first, because his came up first, and I don't if I don't know.
Want to hear from Andy. So how do we expect to reconcile the differences in data handling, confidentiality, security, etc., that drive us away from ChatGPT to the API now? I read it. Somebody else needs to answer
it. That'll be you, Carl.
I think we need a little bit more context, because everything that we're promised, right? It's like, we don't train on data. We don't train on using the API. Greg, does your question mean that we're not going to be using, like, most people aren't going to be using ChatGPT? It's now going to be on the API now. Although if you turn off the toggle on your settings, and then you fill out the form, that should protect you enough that none of the stuff that you actually enter in is being trained on. So
that's kind of my take on it. If you fill out the form, which is the best use, because then it doesn't make you turn off your history. Don't you? I mean, by the way, mine, by the time I filled out the form to the time they sent me back a confirmation of it, was less than 2 weeks. And I got it maybe a couple of days ago, and it was like, yeah, we no longer will do this. If you want to change your mind, this is where you go. But if I just simply fill out that form, and anything I'm using through my pro account now makes it the same, as far as I understand it, as it would be through the API. Now, I may not have some of the bigger protections that they announced yesterday, as far as like what they're going to be doing for enterprise, which is basically, hey, we'll defend you essentially if somebody comes after you for using this data and all that. However, However, by the way, they're not the only ones that do that. Claude does that.
No,
Google does
it's like bingo now, right? Like, oh, of course you're gonna say this. Who else?
Yeah.
Anybody else need to like pony up and say they're gonna defend us when we get sued, as though that is like the desired use case.
It's like, thanks, I guess.
So, Greg, I'm not sure if we totally answered your question there. We just kind of went around it, but I think that's the way I look at it. As far as when you say like, how do we reconcile moving away from ChatGPT to API? I don't. I fill out the form, and then for me and my use cases, that's good enough. But I fully understand that there's higher level, higher security, businesses out there who are like, look, I don't feel confident with any of this, and I think that's probably the right attitude, to have there. David asked, usability, or was making a comment, I should say. Actually, he does. So this is more back to you, Carl. David said, usability matters. How easy is it to build these things on Vertex? That's Google Vertex compared to what OpenAI is building. So you kind of answered that, but do you want to kind of hit that again?
Yeah. To build a chatbot type functionality on Vertex is very difficult. Now, I think they're trying to make it easier because there's this thing called Dialogflow, and it's really complex. But to build an enterprise search and a document search is actually pretty straightforward. So there's two different ones. If you want to build a chatbot, good luck with that. But if you want to build something that it searches, has an AI search capability, just similar to if you are on the beta for a search generative experience, it looks exactly like that. It'll go on your website.
Cool.
It'll search the documents. It'll have like the one paragraph, what it is, and then all the documents listed. Really great tool. I would expect nothing less because Google is king of search. So they've really done that really, really well.
I'd like to add that David's point is one of the takeaways I had from watching the demonstration yesterday. It was remarkable that within the same UI as everybody's already familiar with, the 100 million, monthly active users who are using ChatGPT, within that same UI, you can easily set up what they call a GPT, the bot. And the usability was a standout success in my view. It was literally, point and click on these different features to add them, and follow the very spare layout, and then you had a preview panel on the right where you could actually interact with the bot. So it's opening it up to almost anyone who wants to create what Carl is so successfully done for other players, but it requires Carl's sophistication to build, whether on OpenAI or through Chatbase or on Vertex. Now, I think I can imagine in the context of education, every class having the teacher or a teaching assistant in the college context can not only put documents up there on their own class GPT, but then they can train that with custom instructions in effect to be able to provide feedback to the students who can upload content to that,
Right.
and ask for review. It's actually, I think, creating a risk for TA's job in the first place, right? It's no longer necessary to have a TA review all of the submissions of the students because a GPT can do that.
Half the TA's job is like taking blah, 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 and framing it. Right, like half the TA's job is like, this is how you ask the question that you're asking.
And by the way, AI can help with a lot of that too. taking a pontificating professor standing at the front of a 300 class. I remember my statistics was like 350 people in an auditorium, in freshman year in college, and pontificating. I couldn't if I went like this, I could kind of see the instructor with their slideshow at the very, very front of the thing, and everything was run by the TA.
So let's go back to the education front. So I remember there was this archaeology class that I took. Oh my gosh, it's like the most boring 2 hours. I was like, the guy kept talking about microblades. Oh, I don't know it's just, it looked exactly the same. Every single rock looked exactly like, what era is this? I don't know. It looks exactly the same. But imagine you just sat there. You're like, and he had one of the old it wasn't even like, you know, when you click the button, it turns to the next picture.
Yeah.
It's because he took the picture back in 1976. So
Yeah.
it kept going on and on and on and on.
Slide carousel thing, you mean?
Yes, the slide carousel.
Where the pictures would go in upside down.
Oh,
just
I
show-
haven't seen one of them since I was a young fella.
And every single his class, I'm like, how many pictures did you take? Because every single class was the exact same. So imagine what you could do is you not show up to class or just drop a recorder. And I know a couple students have done this, but I'm like, that's hard. You still have to listen to the stuff. Now you can just drop that recorder in and or drop like a voice in, and just the transcript's going to come out, and your custom instruction is give me the key points of this lesson or whatever, hook it up to the reading material, and then give me the notes. Like that's all you need to do. So I'm like, your note taking is done, your learning is done, and the key highlights is done. Now the only problem there is like the vision aspect, because I remember his final exam when he gave the exact pictures he showed, like, what century of microblade is this? I was like, they all look the same, man. They all look the same. There was like 20 pages of these. Like, why even, you know, and that was a full guesswork. But I think for education, think about that, like the ability to be like transcribe, connect to reading material, because that's usually how it is, right? The lecture notes, the reading material, what overlaps usually is going to be on the test, like what you should know. So what are those overlaps? And then you've got the notes that you can study from. It's like really focused on like education. Super simple as a student now.
Oh yeah, like listen, I was in college a while ago, between 96 and 2000, so it wasn't exactly yesterday. But back then there was like what was called the red notes, and that was essentially an A+ student who was hired by this little company downtown in Athens, Georgia, at UGA, and they would take notes in the class, and their notes were better than everybody else's. And then you could go buy those notes, and it was black ink printed on red paper, so
because you couldn't copy it.
You couldn't copy it, right? And so that's what you would do. And even if I was a good student, I would always go buy those notes because they were like supplemental. Well, now just take that concept, and now you have the A+ student plus maybe 2 other 3 people, and they go, look, for $50 for the quarter, you can gain access to my GPT that I will create, that's supplemented. I'll do all the work. I'll take all the transcripts. I'll take all the best use cases or whatever, and I will create this GPT with everything you were going to possibly need to know for this course. And you can basically buy my notes, buy my GPT access while you're in this course. And if you're a student who wouldn't buy that, I would buy that in a second, because I'd be like, absolutely, I want to have that sort of base for when I'm asking questions. Because then if I'm typing in GPT and I'm saying, explain to me the mid-century, geological formation of this rock or whatever, if it pulls back in the stuff from GPT and like browsing, let's say, plus it will pull in any information specific to the course. And now it's saying stuff like that was brought up on Wednesday's class, and this is what the professor said. That's a wholly different way of like looking at having information and access. And I was just going to say really quick, because I know we're getting out of time here, but I would love to hear like other use cases if you guys have any like off the top. I know one for me would be, I deal with sales, so that tends to be where my head is a lot of times for scale for the company I work for, and we deal a lot with RevOps. So for me, what I see is basically a know-it-all chatbot, where we started with the title of the show, right? For salespeople who are maybe 2 weeks onto the job, maybe less. Maybe they have all the trimmings of a good sales rep, but they haven't worked for this company. And I think very, very soon you're going to be able to take somebody who's at this company, put them into this company, and they're going to be on calls, closing deals, or not closing deals, but getting deals set or a meeting set for the AEs within 2 weeks of landing at that new job. That is all it's going to take. Everything else they need will be baked into a bot, where if they're ever not sure on a call live with somebody, they will always be able to pull up the correct information. And that might be visual. That might be, hey, the prospect said these potentially 3 things. Can you help me create a visual that puts those three things together in a chart, and it's like, yep, I can do that for you. And then of course we know it can handle all the messaging that goes back out to the client from the notes on the call. So I think from being live on a call all the way through the follow-up and the action items when it comes to sales, I see a huge potential here for this. And not just the GPT stuff that we were announced yesterday, but chatbots in general, and maybe what you're saying, Carl, through the API. So anybody else have any like sort of future use cases that you see coming as far as this goes?
Yeah. My wish is similar to yours, but it's marketing related. I mean, there's so much to learn and keep updated on, and copywriting is a huge part of marketing that you know, unless you've been doing it for 20 years, it's really difficult to become good at it quickly. So there's a guy who, a Facebook ads consultant / coach guy that I've done a bit of work with before, by the name of Depesh Mandalia, and he's been building his own chatbot, training it on his Facebook ad writing service. And you can literally jump in and ask it questions. It will help you write ads. It'll help you come up with copy ideas, all that sort of stuff. So for me, if I had a tool like that, it was on my, I don't know, my phone, or just a, you know, a little thing I could talk to on my computer, that I could have, it would have the knowledge of, you know, the last 50 or 100 years of marketing stuff, that would be awesome. And I would be very happy to pay for that.
So I have two things. I want to push back just a little bit on what Brian said. I think it's interesting, but that ability has been in tech support for quite some time. Like, it's not an AI that brings it up automatically on the screen, but you everything that you need to say is there for you.
Yeah,
and that is not created for me a warm and engaging tech support experience. Like, there's more like I'm not saying that your sales technique or like your company is amazing. I'm just like, I think that there's more than like, oh, they have access to this information, it's going to be great. Because I think that's a caution. My takeaway is Carl talking about education, and what I was hearing as he was talking about this is going to take the notes for you is in all of these like how to be a consultant, how to like make chatbots, all of these training in environments that we get access to because we're in this amazing community. I am inspired the whole time. I no longer need to take notes or do that. I can literally just write down the ideas that I'm inspired by and the time that it is, and then go back to this content. And I've been like circling around that, but this like kind of coalesces it for me. Like, awesome. Because I'm gonna miss the idea, or I'm gonna miss 5 minutes of like something gold that Heather Ray said. Hey, Heather.
There's one thing I would like to, if you want to, because right now we know what we know. We don't know what this means for everybody, because people are gonna create really cool stuff. Like I saw on X yesterday, somebody already built a voice thing where it's a clip of a soccer game where a player scores a goal, but from that, the beginning of the clip to the end, they've connected it to they've actually created an announcer. Not a very good one, but an announcer that actually describes scoring a goal, but you know where that's going. That's so exciting. I think though, what you could do is, and what I've been doing is going to ChatGPT and saying, with the you are a whatever, but with the recent developments with OpenAI, and just put the links, use browser, and just say, hey, in your particular field, what can, in your business, like, you know, specify it, what could be done. And then, because Browse with Bing is better, it actually does a really good job and gives you lots and lots of ideas.
Right.
So I definitely recommend doing that for your business and seeing, hey, these are some new things that we could try. You know, I've done it for marketing analytics, like, oh, now you can do this, and then this, and this, and this, right? So it's just kind of, if you can't think of it, hey, you've got your AI co-pilot to help you out.
I want to just point out that there is a use case and an application using the GPT framework to create agents that have the ability to go out and take actions against other systems, whether that's, like what we've been using Make and Zapier and so on. Well, now Zapier has a GPT that's available in that GPT store, or will be when we can see it. And the demo showed very clearly that if you use that particular GPT, then you have access really to the connections that Zapier has set up right through that GPT. And I'm still a bit confused. Does it mean I have to have a subscription to Zapier to use that? Or, it's not clear about that. Another open question, by the way, that I just want to throw out there is, how big is the context window has, expanded to 300 pages. But if you're loading documents into a private GPT, what's the file storage limit on that? Like
10
how
gigs.
How much can you put in there?
512 megabytes times 20 files, 10 gigs.
10 gig.
Oh, it's 512 per file, not
per file.
Oh, per file, so not overall. How are they going to store all that? Every single person gets 10 gigs.
Don't know, but that's the information that I came away with.
Yeah, so I haven't seen the documentation on that, and I couldn't find anything on search last night. So I'm open to believing that OpenAI is, for $20 a month, going to be able to afford storing an enormous amount of data for each individual user, and that a large number of users are not going to store much of anything at all. So it probably gets folded in that way.
Just us power users.
Well, that's the other thing, and I know we're a little over here now, but just like plugins, we're all excited. We know those are people calling someone to build bots.
That's me. Sorry. We're over, so I've got to go.
But
see you, Andy.
Thanks, Andy.
There actual thing is there actual education besides those two blogs on how to do this? That's always been the question. Is there anything to help people? Yes, there'll be YouTube videos. Yes, people will create some sort of, but is there any formal stuff to do to actually build this, or just like plugins? In 2 months, are we be on to the next new amazing thing? And we're like, oh, plugins. GPTs. That's cool. Remember when that was amazing?
Right.
Right.
I mean,
so
right. That's been most of 2023 is God mode. And then everybody for about a 48-hour window goes nuts, and then nobody talks about it anymore,
Yes.
All right. Well, listen, tomorrow, as I'm looking at Ann's comment here, thanks for giving us a tiny break from DevDay. I don't know how well we did that, Ann, but we did try to focus just on since today's topic was about just chatbots. We tried to really sort of stay focused there. Now, however, tomorrow, Wednesday, is our normal what's in the news day. And although there's been other developments and things like that we'll try to make sure we bring in, so it's not all about the dev day, that definitely is probably going to be a good portion of it. So as we find out more today, as more news comes out, as more people have the ability to maybe get access to some of these tools or whatever, we'll bring that up on tomorrow's show. And we'll also bring up any other news stories that we think are relevant, as always. So if you want to hear more about, our thoughts on OpenAI's Dev Day, or where this is all going, or how important it is, and all the things that were announced yesterday, come on back tomorrow. We'll talk about those then as well. So that's it for today, and we will see you guys for the rest of the week. See ya.
Ciao.